Right now to Democrats and also to Americans that are stuck in airports is really devastating watching it online because Democrats won't fund DHS.
What's devastating?
To Americans right now stuck in airports as we speak because Democrats won't
Well,
fund
they just
DHS.
don't, they won't. Look, this is a deal that was done in the great big beautiful deal, which gave you the biggest tax cuts ever, including no tax on tips and no tax on Social Security for the seniors. Think of it, no tax on overtime, tax deductions when you buy a car, you take money, pay interest on the money, you deduct it. We've never had that for people buying cars, if it's an American car, only if it's an American car. But
Welcome to Dr. John Podcast. So this is happening. Right now, Trump was sitting in Florida, convinced he was safe. When the numbers flashed on screen, the articles had passed. For the third time, he's impeached. The same president, 3 impeachments, 1 presidency, less than 7 years. Republican defections made it happen, and nobody saw it coming, including him. Let me take you inside what happened.
they are just they stick together, the Democrats. I tell you, I give them great credit for that. We have some that they're not good stickers. We have guys like Tom Massey in Congress, who's terrible. He's just terrible person. I call him Rand Paul Jr. But they don't vote. Rand Paul, rarely votes for stuff. Likes me, says I'm a great president.
The House was not planning to impeach Donald Trump that day. Leadership had made a strategic decision to focus elsewhere. The conventional wisdom was that impeachment wasn't going to happen, that the votes weren't there, that it was politically risky. But Representative Al Green, a Democrat from Texas, had other plans. He understood something that the political strategists...
He said the other day, I'm a great president, one of the greatest presidents. But I said, do me a favor. Vote for us and don't call me a great. I'd rather have the vote than the statement. But we have people that don't stick together, and those people hopefully will someday be gone. The thing I most respect about the Democrats, even on horrible policy, they stick together. What they do have, though, is horrible policy. Transgender for everyone, open borders, men and women's sports. They have the worst policy that you can imagine. So whether they stick together or not, they have just this terrible policy. We have great policy. Republicans have great policy. We have common sense policy, but it's great policy. That's our biggest advantage, is our policy is correct. Yeah, please.
seem to have forgotten. The Constitution does not wait for perfect timing. The Constitution does not care about election cycles or polling numbers. When a president commits abuse of power and obstruction of justice, Congress has a duty to act. So Green forced the issue. He brought articles of impeachment to the floor in a surprise move that caught absolutely everyone off guard. Members of Congress scrambled, staffers scrambled. The White House was caught completely flat-footed, and suddenly the House was voting on whether to impeach the President of the United States, and nobody knew which way it was going to go. The first article dealt with abuse of power. The accusation was straightforward. Donald Trump had repeatedly attacked federal judges, demanded their impeachment, defied court orders, and instructed his administration to ignore judicial rulings. He had placed himself above the courts, above the law, above the Constitution. The second article dealt with obstruction of justice. The accusation was that Trump had orchestrated a cover-up, that his attorney general had lied under oath to Congress, that his administration had refused to comply with subpoenas, that he had systematically blocked Congress from getting the evidence it was entitled to. The vote was called, the numbers started coming in, and the tension in that chamber was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Every single vote mattered. Every single member knew that history was being made. When the final tally came in on the first article, it was 218 to 215. Two votes separated impeachment from no impeachment. On the second article, it was even closer, 217 to 216, one vote. If 2 Republicans had voted differently, none of this would be happening, but they didn't. 3 Republicans looked at everything that had unfolded over the previous weeks and months, the chaos, the dysfunction, the contempt rulings, the lies under oath, the Supreme Court decisions, the entire catastrophic unraveling of the administration, and they made a choice. They voted to impeach their own party's president. Those 3 Republicans are the story within the story. They are the reason this happened. They are the ones who looked at Donald Trump's behavior, looked at the evidence, looked at the Constitution, and said, we cannot defend stand this anymore. We cannot vote to protect a president who attacks judges, who has his attorney general lie to Congress, who treats the law as something that applies to everyone except him. And their votes were enough to pass the articles, enough to make Donald Trump the most impeached president in American history. Now, let me tell you about what happened when Trump found out. According to multiple sources close to the White House and inside the administration, Trump was at Mar-a-Lago when the vote began. He was watching it live. He was getting real-time updates from his staff. And for a while, he was confident. He had been told this wasn't going to happen. His people had assured him the votes weren't there. But as the numbers started to come in, as the reality began to set in, something shifted. When it became clear that the articles were actually going to pass, that impeachment was actually happening, that there was nothing he could do to stop it, Trump lost it completely. He started screaming at the people around him. He started making frantic phone calls to Republican members of Congress, trying to threaten them, trying to pressure them, trying to get them to change their votes. He was yelling at his staff, "Do something, fix this, stop this." But it was too late. The votes had been cast. The articles had passed. Impeachment was a done deal. And for the first time in a long time, Donald Trump was completely powerless to stop it. He couldn't threaten his way out of it. He couldn't bully his way out of it. He couldn't intimidate the House into retroactively changing the outcome. The constitutional process had moved forward, and he was standing on the wrong side of it. And the people who witnessed his reaction say it was unlike anything they had ever seen. Rage, panic, a complete inability to process that he had lost. What makes this impeachment so significant, so different from the previous two, is the context in which it happened. This did not come out of nowhere. This was not a political stunt. This was the culmination of weeks of cascading crises that have completely consumed the Trump administration. Every single day brought a new disaster. Judges across the country issuing contempt rulings, threatening arrest for Trump's officials, demanding compliance with the law. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, collapsing under questioning during a congressional hearing, getting caught lying under oath about the Epstein files in front of millions of people watching live. The Supreme Court striking down Trump's tariffs, ordering massive refunds, humiliating the administration on a policy that was supposed to be a signature achievement. Federal judges ordering Trump himself to testify under oath about illegal conduct. Former allies getting arrested, cooperating with prosecutors, turning on the president. It all happened at once. The judiciary revolted. The courts pushed back. The Supreme Court said no. Congress watched it all unfold. Watched a president who thought he was above the law discover that no one is above the law, and then Congress did what Congress is supposed to do. They impeached him. And here is where the story gets even more interesting. The Republican defectors, the three who voted for impeachment, they are not random backbenchers. They are people who watched Bondi lie under oath and decided that was the line. They watched judges threaten arrest and decided that was the line. They watched the Supreme Court humiliate the administration and decided that was the line. They watched the entire system of government push back against a president who thought he could ignore it all, and they decided that they were going to stand with the Constitution rather than with the president. Trump, of course, is vowing revenge. According to reports, he was screaming about primarying them, about funding challengers, about making sure they never win another election. He is trying to threaten them, intimidate them, punish them for their betrayal. But the vote has already happened. The articles have already passed. The impeachment is already sealed in the history books, and no amount of screaming at Mar-a-Lago is going to change that. The White House official response was predictable. They called it a Democrat hoax. They called it a witch hunt. They said it was all political persecution and that Trump would be vindicated in the Senate trial. But the problem with that narrative is that everyone has seen what happened. Everyone watched Bondi lie. Everyone read the contempt rulings. Everyone saw the Supreme Court decisions. Everyone watched the administration unravel in real time. And now everyone knows that 3 Republicans looked at all of that and decided they could no longer defend the president. So what happens now? The articles go to the Senate. And this is where things get truly uncertain. The Senate will hold a trial. Evidence will be presented. Witnesses will testify. The House managers will make their case. Trump's lawyers will mount their defense. And then the Senate will vote. To convict and remove Trump, they need 67 votes. That is a high bar. But after everything that has happened, after all the contempt rulings and the lies under oath and the Supreme Court decisions and the arrests and the defections, nobody knows for sure whether the votes are there. What everyone does know is that the trial itself will be devastating for Trump. A public trial on live television, with witnesses, with evidence, with the full weight of the constitutional process bearing down on him. Even if the Senate does not convict, even if Trump survives, the process of being tried for abuse of power and obstruction of justice, of having his conduct laid bare for the American people to see, of having his own party members testify against him, that is going to leave scars that never heal. And think about what this means historically. Impeachment is supposed to be rare. It is supposed to be an extraordinary remedy for extraordinary circumstances. In the entire history of the United States, only 3 presidents have ever been impeached: Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump. But Trump has been impeached 3 times. 3 separate impeachments in less than 7 years. That is not normal. That is not ordinary. That is a president who has repeatedly, systematically, willfully placed himself above the law. And a Congress that has repeatedly had to step in and say, no, you are not above the law. The first impeachment was about Ukraine, about foreign policy, about abusing the power of the presidency for personal political gain. The second impeachment was about January 6th, about inciting an insurrection, about trying to overturn an election. But this third impeachment is different. This third impeachment is about the here and now. It is about a president who is currently in office, currently defying court orders, currently attacking judges, currently obstructing justice. It is about conduct that is happening as we speak. And Congress has said, we will not tolerate this. We will not accept a president who thinks he can ignore the courts. We will not accept a president who thinks he can have his attorney general lie to us under oath. We will not accept a president who places himself above the Constitution. The vote margin, 218 to 215, 217 to 216, tells you everything you need to know about how close this country is to the edge. 2 votes. 2 votes separated impeachment from no impeachment. 2 votes separated accountability from impunity. If 2 Republicans had stayed with Trump, this would not be happening. If Al Green had not forced the vote, this would not be happening. If Bondi had not lied under oath, those 3 Republicans might have stayed with Trump. But everything came together at exactly the right moment. The judges issued their rulings. Bondi got caught. The Supreme Court said no, and Congress acted. And now, here we are. Donald Trump, the most impeached president in American history, facing a Senate trial that could remove him from office, screaming at his staff, threatening revenge, demanding that someone do something, anything, to stop what has already happened. But the constitutional process does not care about his tantrums. The rule of law does not bend to his will. The system that he thought he could ignore, the courts he thought he could attack, the Congress he thought he could bully, has finally pushed back in the most powerful way possible. This is the moment. This is the moment where everything changes. Not because of a speech or a tweet or a press conference, but because 218 members of the House of Representatives looked at the evidence, looked at the Constitution, and decided that they had a duty to act. Because 3 Republicans looked at their own party's president and said, we can't defend this anymore. Because the system of checks and balances, the system that the founders designed to prevent exactly this kind of abuse, actually worked. What happens in the Senate is still unknown. The trial will be brutal. The evidence will be overwhelming. The testimony will be damning. And whether the Senate finds the courage to convict or not, the fact remains that Donald Trump has been impeached for the 3rd time. That is in the history books. That cannot be undone. That cannot be taken away. That is the permanent record of a presidency defined by lawlessness, by defiance, by a belief that the rules apply to everyone except him. And the people who witnessed his reaction, who saw him lose his mind when he realized he couldn't stop it, they know something that the rest of us are just beginning to understand. Donald Trump is not invincible. Donald Trump is not above the law. Donald Trump can be held accountable. And when the system works the way it is supposed to work, even a president who thinks he is untouchable can be brought to justice. The articles are now in the Senate. The trial is coming. And Donald Trump, for all his screaming, for all his threats, for all his attempts to intimidate and bully, is going to have to stand before the United States Senate and answer for what he has done. 3 impeachments, 1 presidency, a constitutional crisis that has been building for years, and a moment of accountability that nobody, not even Trump, can stop. This is history unfolding in real time, and you are watching it happen.